Hey friends, it's Simon Hurley and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be showing a technique that I call faux foiling using lunar pastes. I've been showing this technique a ton over on Instagram, so be sure to follow me there. But it's really short little videos, and so today I'm going to share all of the tips and a really in-depth look at this technique to make it easy for you guys to replicate. By the way, everything I used is linked down below, and using those links helps support me, so I really appreciate it. Alright, I'm starting off with an embossing photo that's been one of my favorites. This one is a 3D folder from Altenew called Book Cover Engravings. And I'm going to place a piece of black cardstock right in here. You can kind of line it up how you want on the design. I'm going to move this over just a little bit, and then we'll close it up in here. When it comes to a die cutting machine, I like the Platinum 6 machine, and I'm going to use their new plate system. This is the universal plate system. It works really well with a bunch of different brands of embossing folders, and for Altenews, I use the platform base and the platform top. Then I place in the folder, and I place one of the cutting plates on top. It'll be different with each embossing folder brand, so be sure to check out Spellbinder's website to see which one works for which brand. All right, then I'm going to run this right through the machine. And when we pull this out, check out the deep embossing that it does, and it really just gives it such a raised texture and dimension with that 3D folder. And Altenew just has such detailed and beautiful florals. I love it. All right, now into sharing my lunar paste tips. So I'm going to start off with the darkest color that I want to use on my floral, which happens to be Prom Queen. And when you're going in with color, you can even go in with some of the color from your lid, or you can pull a little bit of color from your jar. Now, I like to use my finger for several reasons. Number one, I like to get a really small amount of paste on it, so I'll literally wipe my finger off on the side so there's just a little bit on here. That way when I go onto the surface, a little bit goes a long way when it comes to this paste. You can see that already. But it only hits the raised surfaces if you have a small amount of paste on your finger. If you add too much, it'll kind of gloop down into the embossing, and you don't want that. So I'll just reload my finger up with some more paste, again, kind of using the side to wipe it on, and then I'll really lightly go over top of the surface. You also want to keep a really light and delicate pressure when you're doing this. That way it only hits the raised surfaces of your design. And check out how beautiful that is. We finished one of the florals already that simply. All right, now I've seen some comments that people are like, now the next challenge is gonna be cleaning off your finger, right? So I like to just take my finger, and after I'm done usually, I'll just go in, spray my finger down, and wipe it off. And honestly, pink is the color that stains the most, but you'll even see here, it pretty much comes off your finger perfectly clean, and once you're done, just wash your hands too, and it'll all be pretty much gone. And the best part is, when I was wiping off my finger there, this is already completely dry, and it doesn't come off on your hand, which I love. Next, I'm going to go in with a little bit of Roar, which is a great color for another floral here. And if you've got some paste in the lid, this is a really great idea to grab it from the lid. It's a great way to control how much color you're adding onto your finger. And then of course, go in with a light pressure and go to the next floral. And also, lots of people are worried about like going outside of the floral where it isn't embossed. And like I said, if you're just using a light pressure, you should be good, and it's pretty easy to kind of stay inside of the embossed details. So now I'm going to bring in some shading. I want to use Slippery When Wet for my lighter color to add some depth and dimension to these florals. So I'm going in again just from my lid here, using a little bit from there, a tiniest amount on my finger, and I'm going to go right into the center of this flower and then fade it outwards. Now the thing about this is it's going to dry really quickly. Like, that's already dry and kind of unmovable. So once the color becomes unmovable, if I still want to kind of help blend it a little bit more, I'm just gonna bring in more color and kind of blend it out. And it's pretty forgiving in that way, where you can just add more paste on the top and keep blending. And check that out. I love that detail that it adds there. And since this is opaque with all that pigment powder, it's going to kind of cover up some of that pink and blend together beautifully. Gonna do the same thing with this orange flower by just adding a little bit of that yellow in the center for some more depth and dimension. Now, I love greens, and there really are a lot of options in this line when it comes to greenery and foliage. I like to use kind of varying colors in different projects, whether you want more cool tones like these, or you want to bring in kind of warmer greens. If I want a really bright green, I usually go in with Psych. It's one of my favorites. It's this kind of yellow, greenish gold color in the Lunar Paste. I'm going to put just a little bit on my finger again, and then I'm going to easily blend this onto the surface of these leaves. And then as I'm working towards these flowers, if I get a little bit of green onto those flowers, it wipes off pretty easily while it's still wet, because this color is already dry. So it's pretty easy, if you make a mistake, to kind of remove it off the other paste colors. And I just love how beautiful, bright, and intense this site color is. It really brings these kind of floral clusters to life with this super bright and cheerful color. All right, and I always love to use some varied greens, so I'm gonna use a little bit of Lighter Gator, which is this kind of mid-tone, warm green color, and I'm just going to add a little bit down onto these leaves. So they were kind of a different shape and size, and so I thought using a different green would really bring it to life and kind of give that natural, varied look that you'd have in nature. And this, my friends, besides the fact that I just love green, is the reason why I add so many beautiful green colors into the line. All right, now just like I did to the flowers, I'm gonna add some shading. So I'm gonna use a little bit of fake plant when it comes to adding some shading down to the site color. I'm gonna go right in here with a little bit of that fake plant color, and I just like to add it in at the bottom where that shading would be, and then you can always blend that with another finger too. All right, and a good tip is to add that color down and then blend it out with the finger that has no color on it, because if you try blending it with the finger that has your color on it, it's just gonna spread the color more. But this way, it's gonna kind of stop it from adding more color and just blend it out beautifully. See? Super simple technique to help with that shading. And look how much variation that adds to the leaves. It really gives them lots of dimension. And for Lighter Gator, I'm bringing in Tropical Tango, which is this beautiful teal color. I absolutely love it. And I'm going to bring it down to these leaves. Again, add it down at the base of the leaf and then tap that in to give some dimension and blend it out. And the cool part about this is the dry time is almost nothing, and it doesn't come off on your fingers when you're wiping it, which just makes for such a beautiful effect. I'm telling you guys, it looks like foiling. It really comes to life once it's dry. Now to put this card together, I want to add a little bit of contrast. So I'm going to cut this card out with a little bit of a border on this top edge, which is going to give it lots of detail and interest. So if you feel like you don't know what to do with a card and how to pull it together and you want to add more interest, this is a great way to do so. All right, and then I'll just adhere this down to a white card base, and I like to start in the bottom edge there. Then I'll work my way up to this edge and line it up, and then it should align with the rest of the card really nicely. We can adhere it down and cut off any excess from the side. I want to add a sentiment, and I love the bold bouquet set. The imagery in this is just beautiful, but it also has a bunch of little sentiments you can use that are really nice and encouraging, and some basic ones as well. I'm going to use a little bit of Versamark ink, and I chose the thank you sentiment because you just can't go wrong with a thank you card. I'll stamp that down onto a scrap of my black cardstock that we just cut out, and then I'll throw over a layer of white heat embossing powder, tap off the excess, and if there's still any extra, I like to kind of lightly blow on it. It usually gets rid of most of this dry pieces of embossing powder because sometimes flicking it can get off too much. And then I'll heat set that until it's nice and bright white. All right, then I'll place my thank you sentiment kind of in one of the openings. And that finishes this card off. Guys, check out that beautiful metallic shine you get from the Lunar Paste. It really looks like foiling with all of that amazing shine. And there's about half the work involved. Moving into the next card, I'm going to show kind of a different iteration of this technique. So I'm using the Monstera Leaves 3D embossing folder, again from Altenew. I love these beautiful and bold leaves, and I'm going to take a piece of my stark white cardstock, again kind of line it up with the section of the design that I want to use, then I'll fold this over and we can run it through our die cutting machine. For this, again, I have the platform base and the platform top down. I'll place down my Altenew 3D folder, and then I'll put in one cutting plate, and then run that right through. And then again, it creates such a beautiful raised and textural design on your card project. For this, I'm starting off with a little bit of ink blending on my embossing. I'm gonna start off with a little bit of Psych at the bottom and use my domed foam blending tools from Ranger to apply my Simon Hurley Create ink down. I love how this blends so beautifully, and it goes on really nice and smooth. Next, I'm going in using a little bit of Tropical Tango. This is one of my favorite colors from the line, and it just blends into Psych so beautifully to create a brand new color in between, which I love. So my inks do a really great job at blending together and creating new colors without any harsh marks. Last, we'll go in using a little bit of Fake Plant, which is one of my darker green colors, and I can go in and blend that with Tropical Tango. And the cool part about blending over an embossed background like this is you're gonna get a unique effect where it kind of collects more ink on the raised surfaces to give kind of a darker pattern where that embossing was. It creates a really nice effect. But we're not leaving it right there, because the colors I used have matching Lunar Paste colors, so we can use these on top of the surface to coordinate. Starting off with a little bit of Psych, I'll go in the same way that I was before, using my finger to get just a little bit of that paste, and then I'll lightly go over top of the surface, staying in the area where I blended down that Psych color. I'm gonna go in with more paste here, and then keep blending over top of the surface, and we're just again hitting the raised areas. And again, I use my finger and not a sponge because it's easy to control, but also the sponge would kind of sink into the surface and go down into the cracks and crevices, whereas this just hits the raised surfaces. Next, I'm going in using a little bit of Tropical Tango, and this color in Lunar Paste is one of my favorites. It's just this beautiful and rich teal color. It's super vibrant and shiny. And then when I need to blend these two tones together, I'll just kind of swipe them next to each other, and then again, use my dry finger to blend in between the colors super easily. It creates a nice smooth transition. Last but not least, I'm using a little bit of Fake Plant, which is this nice rich and dark green color. And I'll just go in on top of Fake Plant and add that right down. And you can really see how these colors really match their Lunar Paste super nicely. We worked really hard to make sure that every color matched so that it works together just so seamlessly like this. And once those are dry, check them out when you tilt them in the light. They just give such a beautiful shine. But I love that when you look at it straight on, it just looks like a tone-on-tone background, but it comes to life when you tilt it like this. You guys can see this lovely Lantanas stamp set is well loved, but I'm gonna use the With Deepest Sympathy sentiment since it's quite large and I love the font. And for this sentiment, I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm gonna use Tropical Tango, which I used on the center of that card, and I'll ink up my sentiment stamp really easily. And then I can go in here and stamp it onto my stark white cardstock. And then once I lift that off, I'm going to throw over a layer of clear heat embossing powder. And if you move just fast enough with my ink pads, they should stay wet long enough to heat emboss. The clear heat embossing really just intensifies that ink and gives it a bold look. Then I can go in with my Fiskars Spring Assist scissors, cut right around this, and then I'm going to simply go in a little bit closer and fussy cut this with a nice border. The reason I do this to my sentiments is just because it gives it a nice finished look rather than just leaving it on a rectangle. And there we have the finished card. Again, I love the look with this tone-on-tone Lunar Paste. It really brings the background to life when you tilt it in the light and get that beautiful shine. And remember, there are lots of colors in the line that have coordinating colors of ink, so you can do this with many different tones. All right, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave me a comment down below letting me know which card was your favorite. And also down there, again, is a full supplies list in case you're interested in any of the things I used. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!